I'm going to jump across to Dominic Raab's letter. So he's read the report, and this is him highlighting what he thinks are the fair points and the unfair points in a letter that I think it's fair to say it doesn't make him sound like he's thrilled with the conclusions and the judgment of Adam Tolley. But since he pledged on Sophie Ridge's programme and at the start of this process to resign at the moment, if he was found to have bullied or harassed anybody, he has gone, and he says it's important to keep my word. But here you go. You've heard Adam Tolley's verdict on Dominic Raab's behaviour. Let's hear Dominic Raab's verdict on Dominic Raab's behaviour. He points out that actually the report didn't find that he behaved badly in lots of different types of ways. So, ministers must be able to give direct critical feedback on briefings and submissions. So a big part of what we've just seen in the report from Adam Tolley is he was unconstructively critical to civil servants who didn't turn up properly briefed. He says you've got to be able to do that if you're a minister. You've got to be able to tell your officials, that's not good enough, go away, come back. This is all in the nuance. This is all in the disputed interpretations of what's acceptable and what's not. He says you can do that, provided, Dominic Raab says, it's within reasonable bounds. And then he goes on to set out why he thinks that although tough, it was reasonable. That report, Adam Tolley's report, concluded that I had not once in 4.5 years sworn or shouted at anyone, let alone thrown anything or otherwise physically intimidated anyone, nor intentionally sought to belittle anyone. I'm sorry if I caused unintended stress. However, the public expect ministers to push hard in setting the threshold for bullying so low. This inquiry set a dangerous precedent of spurious complaints against ministers, and that will have a chilling effect on those driving change on behalf of your government. So overall, Sam, you've got this sense that Adam Tolley has listed different types of behaviour, and he has judged a couple of them to go beyond what's acceptable, a kind of repetitive criticism of officials that Adam Tolley characterises as unconstructive. And then Dominic Raab's reply is, look, you've got to be able to be frank with your civil servants because in the end, we need to get the best out of them. There is a long way to run to see what side everybody comes down on, which is why there is one verdict that matters more than anything else. We've changed the screen again. Now we've got the letter from the Prime Minister. And I think we're just going to go through this for clues of where does Rishi Sunak come down. And I have a feeling that one of the reasons it's taken so long, 24 hours, to digest this 60-odd page report and come to a conclusion is because I think inside Downing Street, judging by what I've read, they feel that the whole picture is quite nuanced. What constitutes bullying? Was there a group of civil servants who never met Dominic Raab working against him? So let's just look at the language of the Prime Minister. He says, it's with great sadness I've accepted your resignation. Remember the sort of tributes to the Prime Minister, relatively brief in Dominic Raab's letter to Rishi Sunak, but the other way around. Actually, it's very, very fulsome. He deals with the complaint and the decision to dismiss him at the beginning. He says, when I became Prime Minister, I pledged that the government I lead would have to have integrity, professionalism and accountability at every level. The Ministerial Code requires ministers to uphold the highest standards. When formal complaints about your conduct in different ministerial posts were submitted last year, I appointed Adam Tolley. As you said, you rightly undertook to resign if any findings of bullying were made whatsoever, and you have kept your word. But it is clear that there have been shortcomings in the historic process that have negatively affected everyone involved. We should learn from this how to better handle such matters in future. So that's the Prime Minister talking about shortcomings amongst the people who previously had made complaints, but also affected everyone involved. Does that include Raab? Is that a little note of sympathy, actually, from the Prime Minister, acknowledging that actually some of this stuff is more nuanced, that actually, whilst there is a verdict of unacceptable behaviour in some contexts, there is some other context that makes the whole situation a bit more complicated. And then the rest of it is essentially a tribute to the 4 Secretary of State jobs that Dominic Raab has done, Brexit Secretary, Foreign Secretary and twice at the Ministry of Justice. He says he was a great Justice Secretary, putting victims and prisoners first, a great Foreign Secretary, a key point in Brexit and in taking on Hong Kong, and then pays tribute to that role. And a lot of people remember that role when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, went into hospital, Dominic Raab took over. So where are we in conclusion? I think, Sam, that there are many elements of the report that was done by Adam Tolley that are pretty uncomfortable, pretty damning. It paints a picture of somebody who was pretty relentless when dealing with staff. But there's nothing physical. There was nothing there was not outright shouting by Dominic Raab. There was something that critics and Adam Tolley have judged was unacceptable, niggling at and effectively bullying and undermining their confidence. Something that Dominic Raab makes very clear in his letter, that he does not accept amount to bullying because he thinks that you should be able to have a robust conversation with civil servants who turn up without proper briefings. And the Prime Minister, just a little hint there that he's acknowledging that whilst it was right to resign, maybe this situation isn't quite as clear-cut as you might have thought from some of the headlines, that there is a lot to discuss in Adam Tolley's report, that actually do have that group of civil servants who never met Dominic Raab working inside the Ministry of Justice, effectively campaigning to get him out. It's not very straightforward, actually very positive about his career. This, I think, is a lot more sanguine, a lot more traditional in terms of letters to outgoing Secretary of State who's had to resign, pouring tribute on everything they did. So a verdict in terms of his exit, a formal verdict in terms of Dominic Raab's behaviour, but many, many questions, and lots of people will end up taking away lots of different lessons about all the information, the huge amount of information that we've received this morning and been bringing to you on Sky News.